All right, we're going to give folks just a second to get started.
Sure.
We got some folks that are joining.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Is it going to be easier for me to share a tab or share like a PDF? Because I saw when I hit the share button, it looked like it was an option for either one.
Yep. Hey, whatever works best for you. This is a pretty good platform.
Okay, great.
So just as folks are getting online here, just to get started, my name is Leslie Wolf. I'm from Tradewind IN3, and I'm moderating the session. I'm here to introduce RedShred LLC, and I am going to now, Jim.
Yep.
I'm going to. Okay, I think you're the speaker.
Okay.
And now I am going to hide myself from the stage, and you can take it away. We'll be done right. It's right at 1 p.m.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, folks, how are you? I'm Jim Kukla. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm here to talk to you today about business process transformation and our product RedShred and sort of how it fits into that ecosystem. At RedShred, one of our taglines is read less, win more. And our platform allows you to treat your documents that sort of exist all over your enterprise as a database. I'm sure we've all lived through this situation. We've kind of been in this scenario before where we're working in an organization, and based on our role, we have at least one kind of document, maybe more, that it just controls our lives. They flow in, they flow out. We have to pull information out of them, share them with other people, move this kind of content around. And it makes things challenging, right? We'd like to be able to automate these processes. We'd like to be able to sort of escape this manual issue of having to sort of pull content out of documents. And for many, many years now, we've been promised the paperless office, right? One of my favorite quotes here, we pulled from Business Week. Apparently, they were saying the paperless office is close as far back as 1975. And the eagle-eyed among you will note that the fax machine was still on its rise many, many years later. So why are we still stuck with paper? Or even if not paper, we end up in a situation where we have these paper analogs, right? We have Word documents, we have PDFs, we have Excel spreadsheets they're digital, and they may even be digitally native, but they're still effectively page-based formats and these sort of layout-oriented formats. And it's a challenging way to share information. And they're pushed on our organization from other organizations as well. Sometimes we'll work with an upstream supplier and they provide documentation to us in PDF formats. Sometimes people are submitting proposals or other things and they're coming in, either it's Word documents or PDFs. And all of these present a unique challenge. You get into the document and you have to quickly understand the lay of the land, figure out what you need, get that information, and then get back on with what you were trying to accomplish. These processes, even if you knew what you needed from the documents, let's say, for example, you're trying to pull out summary information from proposals that are coming in, who's it from, what's the total amounts, any risk factors that you've identified, pulling that information out and finding it can be super challenging, right? Because these documents come in a variety of formats, they come in a variety of layouts. Sometimes they're even just pictures of documents. We've all received that PDF that's basically just a series of images that are stitched together inside the document. And all of these are hard to work with, largely because we have no avenue for influencing those upstream processes and saying, hey, I need this in a different format or in a more effective format. And so ultimately, knowledge workers are left to make do with what's provided to them and what's handed to them from these upstream organizations. So at RedShred, the question we ask is, what if making do included being able to use artificial intelligence to reshape this content into a developer-friendly format? Something that your own team or the integrators that you work with or developers that you contract with could then turn as if it was a database into smarter applications and new workflows that better support your business processes. What would that really look like? We know a couple of things about it. We know you'd waste less time. There'd be less opening of documents, digging through documents, copying and pasting from documents. You'd have increased throughput because what you're working on would now not be limited by the time it takes to open these documents and copy and paste, or the number of people that you can hire to copy and paste from these documents concurrently. And then the sort of most important, in some sense, benefit is that everybody can get onto performing higher value work. Nobody hired us directly because of our ability to copy and paste things in open PDF documents. But ultimately, that's a necessary but not sufficient part of our jobs. And so what we're looking to do is find a way to escape some of that tedium and get onto producing higher value work if we can get through all of this sort of tedious work faster. So this brings us to RedShred's approach. Our approach is threefold. We talk about it in terms of extracting the information you need from the documents based on where it lives in the documents, about enriching that content with the metadata that you need to get your job done. This can be things like if there's a picture in the document, identifying what's shown in the picture. If it's a table, it might be what are the columns in the table or the actual table itself. If it's a paragraph, it might be things like are there dates and times mentioned or dollar amounts mentioned or organizations or people mentioned. And then to be able to take that metadata, attach it to what we know about the document and where it lives in the document, and then turn that into something that's more effective for us, to be able to reshape that content into something new. This can be as simple as pulling from the system like a database where you make a query and say, hey, get me all the titles, get me all the subjects, get me all the people that are mentioned. But it can be as complex as saying, hey, certain panels and certain pieces of the document, I need to be able to show in a new rich virtual environment. You know, I'm creating a new platform for AR, VR headsets for the metaverse, and I need to be able to bring this legacy content in and have people see that in a way that's effective. And so our platform really facilitates this three-step process. So how do you end up using it? When you get into RedShred, the first step is to really identify your goals, to know what kind of document you're working with and what you need from those documents. Once you've identified that, you can work with us or configure on your own flexible extractors to really pull out just the information that you need and to tag it and label it in the way that's effective for you. Once those are configured to define the metadata that you'll receive, then you're going to go ahead and upload documents into the system so they can be automatically processed. And so you might have a collection of documents, for example, that's all proposals, or a collection of documents that might all be invoices. And all of these go through and are processed using similar rules because there's similar types of documents with similar layouts and a similar function in terms of the business. That is, the stakeholders on both ends are trying to convey information and extract similar information. The last step is to get to work building new, smarter applications. So you can integrate this content into existing workflows, you can build new, smarter applications out of it, and you can continue to iterate with the team to get more and more value by diving deeper into these documents and making more passes to say, hey, now that we've got this, this is great, but what if we could also extract this information? And you can work either with us at RedShred or bring your own developers and data scientists to be able to work with you on that content and understanding exactly how you want to unlock the value that exists in those documents. One of the key things that we have at RedShred is what we call segments. These are going to be regions of a page that correspond to an item of interest. It could be something as simple and mundane as a paragraph or a heading. It might be something a little bit more complex like a table or an image. And sometimes it can even be something domain specific. For the pages that you see at right here, these are straight out of maintenance manuals for an engine. And the boxes that you see in pink are actually warning boxes in the documentation. And one of the projects that we're working on is letting AR, VR developers pull out things like those warning boxes to be able to show them during the context of a presentation or during the context of a procedure rather, so that the user is actually notified interactively of key critical information in a timely, relevant fashion based on the context that they find themselves in. Once we have these segments identified, and here in this document, we have headings that are in purple, we have the warning boxes that are in pink, we have diagrams in light green, paragraphs in dark green, and we have lists and outlines that are in this sort of orange-yellow color. Each of these can be enriched independently. So based on the fact that we have a warning, we might want to add metadata to that in a different way than we do for paragraphs. And things that are procedure steps, we might want to enrich differently than things that are narrative text that sort of describe theory of operation. And RedShred allows you to separate all of these things out in a divide and conquer strategy to be able to handle all of them differently according to the business needs that you have for those. When RedShred looks at a page like this and it breaks the page into segments and says, these are the roles of these segments on the page, we refer to that as a perspective. And so the page that you're looking at here with the pink warning boxes is what we call the tech manuals perspective. And this is a general machine learning model that we've built based around technical manuals. You see, there are also other perspectives that we have further down to the right. We can break this into sections just based on the physical layout and the spacing between regions, or things like the number of columns we have on the page. So for example, we can see that this layout here for the bottom right document goes from a single column layout to a 2-column layout to a single column layout again at the bottom. And one of the things about RedShred is that all of these things live concurrently on the page. So we can actually union that information together. So we can say things like, I need information from the left column that's in a table that's underneath of a diagram. And this provides us an enormous amount of flexibility for integrating with developers to be able to pull that information out in a way that does treat it much more like a database. So the key benefits of RedShred are that it sees pages like a human does through this mix of computer vision and natural language processing. It supports all major formats. You can upload PDFs, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, images of pages, as I mentioned, plain text files, and additional formats as well. And all of these can be ingested and segmented in a normalized way in the platform. It helps you configure the system to get the metadata that you need. You can use our catalog of enrichments that provide this information, or you can even integrate it with your own existing enrichments or new services that you bring online through simple web-based API calls. And our system forms a sort of central hub of document value for end users. The API-first approach makes integrating it into existing and new applications easy, and the enriched content is a sort of evergreen resource of metadata and value and knowledge that can expand as the needs of your organization evolve. So now I'm going to talk for the last few minutes about a couple of case studies. The first two are commercial customers that we're working with, and the last two are some things that we've started to do on the government side. So the first one I want to talk about here is the CGIS Group. What the CGIS Group does as a business model is they take the wild diversity of state and local RFPs that are issued by jurisdictions all across the country, and they turn that into a series of database entries that they call IT briefs. The idea being that they can take the information that comes from thousands of websites across the country, pull in those documents in different formats, and then make it a searchable database that people can use to find new opportunities to help out in the public sector. Since we've been working with CGIS about 2 years ago, we've processed more than 2 million pages of this content for them. And the work that we're doing for them is helping to extract that information like title, summary description, the dates that are relevant for the opportunity, as well as other sort of key places and mentions for things like the jurisdiction and the place of performance that they want to be able to put in their database. Before RedShred, what they did for this is they would work with individuals that they had in an office who would go ahead and receive updates from their web crawler that said, hey, we think there's an opportunity here. They would go out and they would download the documents by hand. They would open them up and they would copy and paste that information into new database entries. And then they would send that off for editorial review. What RedShred's done is we've inserted ourselves into that workflow so that their crawler team now sends data directly to our platform via API out on the web. Using our SaaS APIs, they then process that information and then pick that information back up to insert it directly back into their database. So we've been seamlessly integrated into that workflow for them. And we've gone and taken something that used to take an enormous team of people in a very interrupt-driven way, and we've increased their productivity by like 250%. The team over there, one of the things I'm most excited about here is they were able to tell us that a benefit that they didn't anticipate is they didn't really track just how interrupt driven their existing workflow was before. That the crawler would basically say, hey, it's time to jump, and they would have to say how high. And they would stop what they were doing and they would go off to do these sort of IT brief extractions. And what they're able to do now is take this thing that used to be interrupt driven and very stress inducing, and it's turned into something much more structured and editorial. And the overall effect, they said, was very tangible on the team, that morale has improved, everybody's mood is up, and things are much, much mellower and less stressful at the office. And so we're very excited to be able to help them in that capacity. We've actually moved on to working with them on some other categories as well. We're working with them on table extraction and pulling information and cross-cutting information across tables from budget forecasts that come from different jurisdictions. And then they're also expanding their usage of RedShred into using a custom taxonomy that they've defined for their opportunities and classifying each of these opportunities into that taxonomy to save even more manual effort. The next commercial customer we've been working with is Caresoft. They're a $5 billion annual revenue VAR that handles over 10,000 pages of incoming bid content daily. This is in some ways in the opposite direction from CJIS. What Caresoft does is they represent vendors out in the real world who are trying to sell products into the federal government. And Caresoft operates as a sales enablement mechanism for them to help get their products into the hands of the public sector. These documents come in a variety of formats. They're Word documents, PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, and sometimes even just emails from certain lists. And what Caresoft does is it uses RedShred to process all of these pages and then route these bids intelligently to a team of over 750 different independent sales groups. We've got a number of other projects that we've started to work on with Caresoft that have been fantastic. They have a product or a side of their business where they're scanning information from checks. And so we're pulling information off of the checks and also the check stubs to link that with their invoicing database and understand who has paid what against what account. And also some fraud detection activities as well, which have been fantastic. The next project I'd like to talk about is the work we're doing with the Air Force under the SBIR program. We're helping the Air Force modernize the way they work with over 5 million pages of what they call tech data or maintenance manuals. These tech data come in as PDFs in many cases, although in some cases they can come in as digital native things like S1000D. But the goal here is to be able to make the content from those manuals, regardless of whether they're an XML-based format or a PDF-based format, available for developers who are trying to build the next generation of AR and VR applications to modernize flight line operations. And so our goal in the system is to be able to go ahead and create a content transformation pipeline that takes all of the different segments that you see here and makes them available via query for developers who are trying to build that next generation of applications that run on tablets, mobile devices, and AR/VR headsets, where simply displaying a full page in the view of the headset isn't a suitable solution. And we're very excited about working with the Air Force on this to be able to really centralize that value and make it available to accelerate and jumpstart innovation across the Air Force. And lastly, we worked with the National Security Innovation Network, along with the Navy Scout program, to be able to speak to some stakeholders at the Navy and find out, with their interest in our technology, what are some areas where we might be beneficial. And one of the things that rose to the top was the idea of mishap reports, where something's gone wrong and there's a folder full of documentation to understand what happened and how can we keep it from happening again. As you can imagine, this is a wide variety of information, including images, tables, scans, maps, you name it, it's there. And what we'd like to be able to do here is make this information more accessible. And so we've got a segmentation model that you can see it right that pulls out things like memo headers, logos from organizations to be able to classify them, addresses from organizations, and then paragraphs as well as images and tables, and indexes that information both spatially so that we can actually pinpoint on a map where different documents in the folder refer to, but also along a timeline showing the series of events that are recorded as part of this process with the mishap report. As you can imagine, this provides an enormous level of contextual awareness that was something you had to stitch together in your mind before. You can now have this in a dashboard interface that was sort of custom built based on our APIs to go ahead and bootstrap a brand new application powered by RedShred data. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you. Feel free to contact us at any time to discuss the challenges that you're facing with business process transformation. And feel free to reach us at hello@redshred.com. Thank you very much and have a great day.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And thanks to Jim at RedShred LLC. We will be ending this session so folks can move on to the next presentation. Nice to see you and hope to see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.